Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Make sure to click that link below, support our sponsor, Provident Metals. Precious metals, in my opinion, are the part of any well-diversified financial position. It protects you and your family from inflation. It protects you and your family from this massive debt that personally I'll be talking about again in February because they haven't solved any problems in Washington. All of this is funny money, folks. So click that link below. Support AMTV, support Provident Metals. So what's next in America? What's next? Because this is just a kick the can down the road strategy. And I'm getting a lot of emails. People want to know, what should we be looking for? What should we be doing? And what am I seeing personally? What's my take? Well, what's happening in the stock market, and again, I'm not a chump. I was a guy who was in finance for 10 years. I worked for Merrill Lynch before I became a rogue independent journalist that started AMTV out of his basement and grew it to 100,000 plus people overnight with your support, and I've interviewed politicians and bankers and all kinds of people. So I know what I'm talking about, and I say that humbly. We are in a new bubble. We are in a new, bigger, bolder, and badder bubble than we were in before the crash and meltdown of 2008. When I was hat in hand with clients, family, friends at the time, telling them to get out of the stock market, run for their lives, because they were going to get slaughtered. It's even worse now, because we have an insolvent government, and we have a system in a Wall Street that is operating on massive leverage. So nothing's changed. It's only been propped up. The dollar continues to lose its value. Interest rates have continued to be artificially held at zero. This is only buying us time and kicking the can down the road. It does not provide us with a solution. In February of next year, we're going to be in the same White House, Democrat-Republic bickering positions, screaming about the debt and raising the ceiling once again during midterm elections. Nothing has changed. Also, a lot of people are saying we're in a new tech bubble. There's a great possibility that we are a social media bubble. Google just hit $1,000 per share. We have new companies, not new companies, but new IPOs coming to market like Twitter in the not too distant future. Is that a bubble? A lot of people and industry analysts think this is very reminiscent of what we saw when the dot-com bubble burst. But never before in history have we had a sector bubble combined, or at least in history where an economy and a civilization has actually survived. Never before have we had a sector bubble, and let's say that that's technology at the moment, combined with a debt bubble and a government bubble, I'm talking over myself, all rolled up into one. So what does that mean? How do you protect you and yourself and your family from what's to come? Well, number one, you need to protect you and your family from dollar devaluation risk. One of the best ways to do that, buy gold and silver. Is it the only answer? No, but it's a healthy way to diversify your financial situation and protect you and your family from what you're doing. Now, can you eat gold? Can you chew on it? Of course not. You can't eat gold. It's a monetary mechanism of exchange. The most important things that you need are, number one, air, followed by water, food, shelter. You need the basic necessities to life. So what happens in a post-apocalyptic debt collapse scenario where the dollar loses its reserve currency status? Countries like China and Japan, our biggest investors in U.S. Treasury debt, pull out. What happens? Well, not only will the system come to a grinding halt, it'll be magnified times a gazillion compared to what we saw with the EBT card glitch, where people had to leave their groceries in the stores and basic necessities because they couldn't afford food. It'll be a very big shock to the system, and it'll be an event that puts many people on the streets. It could potentially, very likely, have a Mad Max environment. So what happens in that environment? Well, war is a natural progression, which I believe that we are already virtually in. We've been in for some time. That's the way federal governments can battle it out and reset the debt by murdering and killing more people. This is the imperial nature of the United States federal government. It's one of the reasons why we've been in the Middle East for several decades now, raping, pillaging foreign independent sovereign nations, killing leaders like Muammar Gaddafi as we see fit, talking and presenting a blame game on people like Bashar al-Assad and chemical weapons in Syria when it was actually and has been actually proven to be the U.S.-funded groups on the ground, the terrorists, the actual terrorists that are providing that kind of terror and instituting that terror on civilians and these parts of the world. So we have war, which in and of itself is something very scary to a lot of people. We potentially could have a draft in this country, which means if you're young, if you're 19 and you're tuning into this video, you'll very likely be asked to die and to shed your blood for, I don't really know who, I guess the elites in Washington and people that have already raped and pillaged the country anyways, maybe the Wall Street bankers. None of their kids, by the way, will be fighting in the war. They'll be working at hedge funds and doing what the well-to-do do. But you'll be expected to die. So war is a natural progression. In addition to that, secession. We've had all 50 states throughout the country over the past 18 months sign petitions, open petitions to secede from the Union. This means that the best states to be are ones that can protect themselves. Great states like Arizona, for example, where we're locally based. Others like Texas that have more guns in the United States really to form their own country. These are the places that are probably the safest, in my opinion, where in a Mad Max scenario, you'll actually have like-minded individuals around who will say no to the federal government and their concentration of power, their authoritarianism, and their push for total control. We saw this with the outbreak of World War II, the rise of Nazism in Eastern Germany. We saw how that ended. So we have war and secession movement both generating and picking up steam here in the United States. Combine that with total financial destruction, total loss of the dollar as the world's reserve currency, where nations pull out of U.S. treasuries. That will create an environment where interest rates hit levels like what we've seen in Europe, places like Greece. There's going to be a lot of very angry people losing their pensions, having those pensions cut in half. We could have very likely have Cyprus-style bail-ins where you wake up one morning and let's say you had $100,000 in your savings account, they tax it by 20%, and you only have $80,000 to pay for the debt. And from that, and ensuing from that, we have more civil unrest in the streets. This is where it's all headed. Because we have a system and an upside-down pyramid scheme that just no longer functions. Wall Street can't operate without massive leverage. The consumer can't operate without massive leverage. The consumer debt back up to the 16 trillion plus range, almost the equivalent of the federal debt range. No different than it was before pre-2008 and 2007 before the wheels came off and many people in America lost significant portions of their net worth, retirement accounts, Roth IRAs, pensions, etc. All this is coming to the United States. It's a reset. You know, we look at the historical precedent, we look at countries or civilizations rather like Rome that collapsed. These were stunning, amazing built infrastructures with government and people and wealth that died. And people want to know why. How did it happen? Well, one of the primary drivers of the collapse of Rome was debt. We had the same problem here. And the other was the imperial nature of the government at the time that just continued to start wars and to spin themselves into oblivion. And that's where the United States is today, oblivion. And no, it's not a movie. It's in real life. We are in a state of oblivion where the masses, the great majority, aren't awake to the hardcore nature and the vulnerability that's been placed on the system. They don't understand that we're structurally insolvent. They don't understand. They can't see that the market system is based on a falsehood. They can't see the non-reality reality that is the Federal Reserve System itself. That banks in this country actually, for every dollar deposited, loan 10, and those $10 go to 10 other banks. And $10 is loaned on those $10, etc. When people try to withdraw their money at the same time or they try to wire transfer it out of the country, they can't. It's exactly why Chase Bank just put in measures recently over the past few weeks, of which we've reported, and they have since gone viral where small business accounts can no longer wire transfer money outside of the country internationally, and they are limited to $50,000 or less a month in cash activity. Think about all the small businesses, the grocery stores, the restaurants, or just the small business that has to pay salaries or has, say 10 employees. They can no longer operate. Now, why would institutions, banks like this be implementing these types of policies if they weren't tightening up their ship and prepping for an ultimate collapse? Why would they be doing that? There would be no other logical reason outside of they're trying to batten down the hatches before all hell breaks loose. These are the same institutions we've bailed out. These are the same institutions that have put an albatross of debt around our necks, the people. These are the same institutions that have not only gotten bigger, concentrated more power, but helped to scale the federal debt in this country to a point where we can no longer pay for it. And it's all going to come back to bite us in the butt. It's all going to come back to affect you and your family. You're the one that's going to take the hit. You're the one that's going to take the loss. You're the one that's going to suffer. You're the one who's going to be asked to die and fight in these brand new wars overseas, and in my opinion, likely to come here on our soil, here in the good old USA. That's the reality. And that's why we need to protect not only our freedom of speech, we need to protect our Second Amendment, our ability to defend ourselves from tyranny. This is why our founding fathers set up this great nation the way it is. And keep in mind and remember, it has only been a short 200 plus years, 230 plus years, and we are already here. We are already back to tyranny. We are already back to the position where we're fighting the new red coat, governing over us and taxing us unfairly through health care bills and the Affordable Care Act, which is anything but affordable. We are in the same position we were before the outbreak of war, 1776, when we declared our independence and broke free from a tyrannical threat, a tyrannical government, Great Britain, and the overpowering nature of tyranny. Get this video out everywhere. I'd like to hear your reaction, solution, problems. How are you dealing and preparing for what's coming to the United States of America? Maybe you've already left the country. Maybe you've decided to stay or moving to states like Arizona or Texas. I'd like to hear from you. As always, God bless. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face. Please support our sponsor. Click that link below. It supports me. It supports alternative media television so I can continue our broadcast. And it helps you and your family prepare for the worst. Plan for the best, prepare for the worst. I'm out. Peace.